Rather unexpectedly, I've stumbled upon a Cities Aviv album here that I have been really enjoying. And I say unexpectedly because I have tried Cities Aviv before and wasn't exactly the biggest fan. But in fairness, it was quite an old album from Cities Aviv. I think it was a 2014 album or something like that. Wasn't keen on it at all, but obviously a lot can change in 8 years. And clearly, we have hit a point where Cities Aviv has managed to hone in their craft, and we've got a totally different album here from what I had heard before. Since hearing this album, I have tried some more recent albums, and there is even another album from 2022 that I haven't even tried yet. So perhaps that is something I should have got round to before the year-end list, because let me tell you right now, this one, my friends, is appearing on the year-end list. And yet the other one that's come out in 2022 could also have appeared on the year-end list if I tried it in time, but we shall see. Maybe there is still time. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really impressed with this one. And one of the things that I'm finding quite surprising is that I'm not seeing as many abstract hip hop fans rave about this as you would expect. There is a huge audience for this sound at the moment. And it always seems to be the case where there's a sound or a style of music that everyone is raving about, and yet there's just that one album that no one seems to be talking about, and yet there's a huge cult following for that particular sound or style. And this is one of those cases for me, because whenever Mavi drops, whenever Earl drops, whenever Mike drops, people go crazy for that shit. And yet Cities Aviv is an artist that could easily be talked about in the same way that those ones are. And I don't really seem to see the conversations happening. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, I don't know, but Towards Understanding is the opening track. I think this is one of the weaker tracks, to be honest, because I think what it does is it sets up the album very bizarrely similarly to the Giganta album that I reviewed not too long ago as well, where it's like the start of the album and it has the foundations of what's to come, but this particular track kind of doesn't really build upon that, and every other track afterwards does build upon it. It's very eerily similar to that album. And what we get here is the opening track that's got this really nice vocal sample, and it kind of just loops over and over again, but yet the other tracks seem to do more with the vocal samples that are presented to us, like the next track immediately after, Chozen, which is a really, really good track where he comes through spitting over this sample. Like, he is absolutely raving through the flows. Like, he just does not slow down at all, in a really cool way. It sounds great over the lush instrumental. And then one of the best things about the track is that when you think it's already at its peak, it just ever so slightly shifts out of nowhere into a totally new beat, and the transition is great. Like, the transition is so good. Like, if you are one of those people that absolutely love transitions and beat switches in hip-hop music, there is absolutely no reason why you wouldn't be absolutely crazy over this one. Again, he's just rapping his ass off on Function and then Action as well, are really great tracks. I think at this point it hits the point of the album where you kind of know what you're gonna get, because these really layered and lush soul samples are looping over and over again as the main feature of the instrumental, and then he's just kind of coming over them, spitting some really cool bars, and really speedy as well with the way he kind of comes through. It's often hard to keep up with his rapping, and on Apple Music, which is what I use, this isn't like some kind of plug for it, by the way. I will not be getting paid for saying this, so don't you worry. But on Apple Music, there are no lyrics, so keeping up with him over these beats is a bit of a head spin at times, because he is pretty fast. But one of the things that I like about this album is that I just love the sound and the vibe that he's bringing to the table with what he's doing anyway. Connections Chance as well is a really good track. You do pick out the line where he says, what does he say here? Sitting in a park, sitting on a park bench thinking about you. Like, he does have these little lines that pop up every now and then that make it seem like, he is rapping about some pretty serious things, some pretty emotional things as well. It's just a shame that the lyrics aren't exactly, accessible right away for me on Apple Music, because it would have been good to follow along after everything he was saying. But I've already mentioned the obvious reference points when it comes to this sound and style of hip hop music. this underground vibe. There are so many tracks that do remind me of Earl, Mavi, etc, etc, and for good reasons as well. There's a warmth to these tracks. His voice isn't quite buried either. He's actually pretty high and front and center in the mix of these songs. So if you're one of those people that think those albums or those artists have bad mixing, which has always been a huge debate whenever you see it on Twitter or something, then this might be the guy for you, because he definitely brings a bit more of a vocal sort of focal point to the album. The melodic instrumental to song 10 is fantastic. The only thing I'd say about this track was that this sort of like talking skit at the end might have just deflated the song ever so slightly. I don't know why this couldn't have just transitioned into its own song and just left that part out, and maybe the beat could have switched a little bit or something just to have its own little section. I don't know. I just think it's a bit of a shame to end the track like this, because it might be one of the best instrumentals on the whole thing. Go Go Girl is an interesting track because there's a way more like heavier, weird head spin moment going on with the instrumental here, and it's reminded me even a lot of like something Injury Reserve would have done on Phoenix album. By the time I get to Phoenix, that is an album that has way over the top weird things going on that you can't always really stomach, and this instrumental here somehow brings that to the table too. But yeah, we've got as well, I wanted to mention Open and Mysticism Redesign, which are two instrumental tracks that transition into one another in such an unusual way. Like they are so strange the way they're paired up, and it doesn't fully like, you know, work in the sense that they make sense together, but it does bring a cool, weird little U-turn that the album takes, or maybe not a U-turn, a detour in fact. I do like the sounds that they provide, even if they are quite strange. To be honest, I would have loved to have heard him rap over Mysticism Redefined. I think that was a really, redesigned should I say, sorry. I think that was a really cool instrumental and would have been great to hear him over it. And Cypress is a track that has a great uplifting soul feel to it that, again, a lot of these tracks have. Like, that's one of the main selling points for this album for me. He's front and center of all the tracks. He's spitting constantly. He does not slow down. There aren't exactly a huge amount of hooks to rely on this album, but the hooks tend to come in those samples. Like seriously, they are really, really heavy and looped, and they get stuck in your head like crazy. And I think they work so well for what he's going for. And it just makes for a really, really uplifting sounding album. Like it really does. I thought Red Veil's album was going to be that album in hip hop this year that had those kind of rich, luscious soul samples that were super uplifting, and they are. That's a great album too, but this one might tip it to first place when it comes to the most uplifting sounding album of the year, because it just has a great sense of sample usage across the whole thing. It's an 8 out of 10 from me. I think this is a really good album. I think there's still some areas that could improve. Like I say, maybe some more hooks here and there, perhaps some more, you know, I guess emphasis on some of the bars, because he is just kind of rapping, and you can't always keep up with him. And I don't think that's necessarily an attack on him as a rapper, but maybe if you just let some of the words breathe sometimes, maybe they'd stick with you a bit more, because it ends up just being about the vibe more than anything else, which I am absolutely fine with, because I wouldn't be giving it an 8 otherwise. But maybe just something for the future. So thank you for watching. Like I say, I haven't seen a huge amount of people discuss this across the hip-hop community. So if you are part of it and you like this album, please let me know what you think. Please let me know if you have checked it out based on my recommendation here, and then let me know what you think. That would be fantastic. Do let me know your thoughts. I keep saying the same thing. Let me know. Subscribe if you haven't already. Have a good day and goodbye.